As a huge Resident Evil fan, and someone who is currently making his own survival horror game in Dreams, I wanted to take a look at some Resident Evil spin-offs I missed out on, starting with Resident Evil Outbreak. I also want to see if I can possibly take anything away from them to aid in the development of my own game. Hey, welcome to Little Big Animation. We are all about creating inspiring video games and animations to unleash your imagination, so you can realise your own creative dreams and share those with the world. You would think that someone who claims they are a huge Resident Evil fan would have played every Resi game under the sun. For the most part, I like to think I've played a bunch, with all mainline entries and a good few spin-offs. Why I haven't played every single title could come down to a number of things. Most of those games perhaps didn't receive good enough reviews, or they simply brushed me by and I completely forgot about them. One of those titles is what we'll be looking at today with the first Outbreak game on the PS2. So what is Outbreak? Perhaps you've never heard of it before, or you've never played it like was the case with me until recently. Resident Evil Outbreak is a survival horror video game which had online multiplayer for the PlayStation 2. Initially released in 2003, it was the first entry in the Resident Evil series to feature co-op gameplay and online multiplayer support. Although from what I read, online support was not available for the PAL versions of the game, which would have affected me being from the UK. This was quite irrelevant for me anyway, as I never utilised the online features of the PS2, but from watching a full playthrough of the game, it's evident that online and co-op are strong components, making the single player less than desirable. But more on that later. Outbreak depicts a series of episodic storylines in a zombie-infested Raccoon City. This was something I wasn't expecting going into the game. Normally Resident Evil games followed one continuous sequence of events, rather than jumping between shorter sections and periods of time. You can control 8 characters, each with unique abilities. This was one thing that really set it apart from the previous games, and even until today, which also made it the perfect multiplayer game, as everyone could be unique in their role. The game is set during the same general time period as Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. The game was successful enough that it spawned a sequel, another game which I need to catch up on next. Outbreak was praised for its graphics, fun factor, and multiplayer, but criticised for the lack of voice chat. Remember, this was back in the days of PS2. There were no party chat, no WhatsApp, times weren't so easy on that front. The game has 5 scenarios, which include locations throughout Raccoon City, such as a bar, apartments, a hospital, a hotel, a university, and the secret Umbrella Lab. There are some nods to previous games, but the locations are almost entirely original. Outbreak is set a couple of days after the initial outbreak of the T-virus in Raccoon City. The game starts with the 8 characters in Jay's bar, who are unaware of what is happening until a lone zombie wanders into the bar and attacks one of the employees. The characters must then make it through the city. The game plays through the Raccoon City incident until its inevitable conclusion after a period of a few days. Since I don't have access to the game, I watched a full playthrough here on YouTube. So although I couldn't get a real feel for the game and its controls, I felt as though I had seen enough to come to a loose conclusion about what I did and didn't enjoy from the experience. It was clear that Capcom wanted to take advantage of the dawn of online console gaming, as well as improve the control scheme for a new generation. The game was packed with unique ideas, even if the execution of those ideas weren't so well realised. If I had to take myself back to 2003 and learning about the prospect of an online Resident Evil game, that would have got me excited. Playing the same survival horror experience but with a friend in co-op, guiding each other and helping to survive together. The idea on paper sounds amazing. Even Resident Evil 0 had single player co-op, which would have been amazing if it allowed us to play alongside another player. More games over the years which added online co-op after Outbreak were Resident Evil 5, 6, Revelations 1 and 2, and Operation Raccoon City. If there's any I've missed, please do let me know. But looking back at those games, online was already a pretty common feature from the PS3 and 4 days, so the appeal wasn't quite as thrilling. Instead, they just became a novelty more than anything else. Perhaps online wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it could have been, but I'm adamant that a game such as Outbreak could have been a lot better than it was. You can instantly tell that it's been designed as an online game first, and the story is almost non-existent. Yes, there are cutscenes, more frequent than I was expecting, but it's so paper thin and the characters have zero personality. I found it quite amusing when I was reading up reviews which stated that the voice acting was good and an improvement from what came before. Resident Evil back then never had great voice acting, but to say that Outbreak's voice acting was a positive, we're clearly clutching at straws. They are basically all mannequins who blurt out words. It's even worse when you have to endure the AI characters during gameplay, screaming absolute nonsense. It makes the whole game feel cheap, and any sense of dread is sucked out immediately. Take a look at these examples.
Well, what should I do with the rest of my life? I'll think about it after I take a nap.
What? What? Excuse me? Hey, no shit. Hey!
Loading times are another serious problem. This was one of the few things I already knew about Outbreak going in. Everything I had previously read years ago all expressed just how awful they were, and they're not wrong. I was fortunate that I could skip ahead on the YouTube playthrough. I can only imagine the torture if I had to endure playing through the game myself, especially when backtracking through rooms multiple times. Looking at the game now, it's easy to find flaws since it was a title from 2003. I'm curious what I would have made of it had I played it back in the day. Considering that I love Resi, I could have perhaps overlooked some of the glaring flaws. I mean, I played and completed Operation Raccoon City at least 3 times, so clearly I have a capacity to forgive a Resi game. I can't honestly say that I missed out on playing this. It doesn't exactly resemble a classic, but I know that it has its fans, or at least some who are fond of it. If they ever release a HD remaster, I'd certainly give it a go, as the communication issues would be at least solved, extreme loading times eliminated, and some fun could be had of it at the right price. So what exactly can I take from the success and failures of Outbreak into my own survival horror game? Dreams currently doesn't have online, but I was never intending to use any online functionality for this particular game. Load times in Dreams are generally extremely quick, so there's no issues there from a technical point of view. I guess the main things would be to ensure that each character feels alive, that their personality really comes through. The story and characters must help to drive the player forward and keep their interest as high as possible throughout. Extra polish and impact must go into the game to prevent it from becoming cheap in places. I'll be looking into more Resident Evil spin-offs I missed out on next, as well as more survival horror content in general. Did you ever play Outbreak? What are some of your favourite survival horror games? Let's discuss down in the comments below, and subscribe if you're new here. We are all about creating inspiring video games and animations to unleash your imagination, so you can realise your own creative dreams and share those with the world. If you'd like to support us on our quest to provide you with the very best inspiring content, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below, which comes with additional exclusive perks such as early access to our demos, behind the scenes content, your name in the credits, along with custom channel badges and emojis. You can also explore our Patreon page or our Teespring store if you'd like to get your hands on some cool new merch. All links can be found in the description below. Thank you. Would you like to see even more inspiring content? Click on one of our videos on your screen now. You can also subscribe by clicking on our little red imp. See you in the next Resident Evil video.